talk tonight about the HR consultant that Trustee Geisler and myself recommend. We were very lucky to find a wonderful human relations person to advise us in this process. We couldn't have done it without her. She was spot on, and she's here tonight, and I want to introduce Jacqueline Huffley. Jackson?
Yes.
Jackson. It's the same person. Anyway.
She's recently married.
Oh, I see. Well,
That's why there's a name change.
I'd like Jacqueline to come up and explain to the board a little bit about what the process was, what she did, and you can ask her any questions about the process or anything else.
Okay.
And we'll add some of our comments as we.
Sure. So I'm Jacqueline Jackson. I came to the village to assist with either finding a HR consultant firm or individual that could assist the village with all of its HR needs. I learned from the trustees that there's questions around recruitment, employee relations, policies, procedures, changing things up, getting a little modern. And so I set out into looking for firms that would be able to assist the village in arriving at the common goal. The RFP had already been sent out to the world, and so Trustee Ivan provided me with copies of the responses. We had 6 total responses for the RFP for HR consultants, and what I did was pick them apart. The first thing I did was go through each of them to make sure that they met the criteria set forth in the original RFP. Then based on the ones that did not meet the criteria, disqualify them. Because a few of them had missing items or they just didn't have them in the order that the village had asked, I kind of just took note of it but still reviewed all of the proposals. Next, based on cost and services that were offered, I looked to disqualify a couple of them. And I also reached out to the folks that were listed in their proposals and their responses. I did research, I Googled them, I checked their LinkedIn profiles, I called their references, I requested reference letters, just to see if they were really who they say they were, to see how fast they would respond, because that's going to be an issue if they're going to be working for the village. To see how knowledgeable they were. I had several conversations within the final 3 picks that I thought at least got the idea of what it's like to assist the village and to work sort of from the ground up, if you will. At that time, I made a recommendation to both Trustee Ivan and Don on who I thought, 3 picks of who I thought would be the best. And then we met with them face to face, and we agreed upon a final selection. And that final, is it okay to say that at this time? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So the final finalists that we thought would meet the village with all its needs, have the proper sensitivity to the village and its people and its culture, and respect those needs, was Sundance Inc. And the owner of that organization is Donna, I can't pronounce the last name, Ms. Naslin, thank you so much. And she was the final pick. So that's a little bit about the process, very brief, but I welcome any questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions about the process?
No. I didn't know anyone, including both trustees before. A mutual colleague mentioned that this was out here, and I reached out. So I was new to the village, I was new to the trustees, as well as all of the folks who had responded to the proposal. I was familiar with some of the firms. Obviously, I work in HR. I'm assistant director of HR for a major child welfare agency downtown, so I'm familiar with the consulting firms. Yes, sir.
Will they represent union employees as well as non-union employees?
Yes. They'll be able to work together and assist with any trouble or issues you may have.
That was one question we asked, that she has extensive experience in both. We weren't going to pick someone.
I didn't know how it would work on. I know
Yeah.
the union was covered by their own.
Well, she knows both.
Okay.
And
dealt with both.
And at the end of the day, things overlap, and so it's important that you get to a place where the village has one voice, whether you're union or not. And so that's why it was important to pick someone who kind of understood those needs.
I don't think we are truly lacking in HR expertise at the village, and I think all the trustees would agree. And I have to thank you for assisting in this process, because I know, as hard as we work,
Yeah.
none of us have the expertise, and we could not have vetted. As much as we need this, and we have to make sure it's the right fit,
Yes.
we needed an expert like you to vet this and vet the process, because we need to make sure we get the right firm in here. And I don't think any of these board members felt comfortable enough doing this on our own. Much as we try with many projects, we just don't have the knowledge and the expertise.
No, and it was truly my pleasure. These gentlemen are just solidarities. And every time I came here to meet with them, I came across employees who are just great people. So it was a joy to be a part of it. It really was. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay. Carl, do you have any comments about this?
The, some of the, going through the criteria and the selection process, some of it was relatively easy because of the vast amount of dollars that they were bidding
Yes.
to. One particular company wanted to not only have an office, they wanted a printer and computer
Yes.
equipment and paper,
Yes.
which wasn't in their bid cost, but they described what their needs were. So some of those businesses were easier to disqualify just because of that, because we didn't want to have a company inside working in the village, as a separate company.
And to add, for example, that organization also wanted to bill for basically full-time staff, which would have opened up the village to exposure, because you can't use contractors as you would full-time employees. And so the cost was a huge cost, as well as there not being necessarily that much of a need. So, like you said, it made it very easy to then disqualify them, because they were just way off the plan.
What is their availability? I mean,
Donna is local. She's, her office is in the south side. The other people that we picked were bigger companies or north side people. We didn't really know what their availability was except by phone. Donna lives in Oak Forest, and her office is in Mokina. She's available. The things that really stood out with Donna were personal service.
Yes.
The fact that she's very flexible. The other companies, for example, wanted to do analysis of our needs, and it would take a month. She'll do it in a week.
Yeah.
She'll do whatever we want. Basically, the price, of course, was the less of all of them per hour. But she's super flexible with whatever we do. The other people really were. It was the corporate, model. This is what we have to do. This is what we want to do. But what really impressed me about Donna, and believe it or not, she was the only one of the three to mention this word: employees. The other ones never talked about the employee. They talked about paper. They talked about this. They talked about that. They never talked about employee. And Donna wants to evaluate the village from the ground up, not from the top down. She's going to talk to the employees to get a bigger picture. And the other ones are going to talk to a few employees. That's fine. She's going to, do a survey. She's going to, if we want, of course, this is all driven by the board and the mayor, how much we want her to do, how much cost we can absorb, so on and so forth. But she's going to do it from the ground up. And as soon as I heard that, I almost jumped up and down, because that's what human relations is about. It's about managing your employee human assets. It's not about counting, looking at, compliance. It's not about filling out forms. It's not about anything else. It's about developing and managing your human resources.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what this, as soon as she said that, this is the person right off the bat.
Yeah. She took the time to research you guys. She took the time to look up your needs. And she included all those things in her proposal, which is one of the things that attracted me to her first. There were a couple other firms who just seen you had RFP, sent in the packet that they probably send to every potential customer, and that was it. Dawn mentioned a assessment period of a month. Some of them cost $12,000 for 4 weeks, 10 hours a week type of thing. And so it made it very clear who was really going to be invested. Donna has, of course I interviewed her extensively, so she has family here at Midlothian Inn. She lives right around the corner. She's already committed. She's got a great personality. It's enough in my job, in my role, to come up with new policies and new ways of doing things without considering the person. But Donna had that thing that says, I'm here and I'm going to care about these village folks and be able to support them with whatever we have to come up with. And that is also why she won me over as well. So I was really excited of meeting her. I told her if she ever needed help, she got me.
And again, the board's going to set the parameters,
Absolutely.
her priorities and how many hours she will work. I mean, it's indicated in here, but this is not a full-time position.
No.
There's no benefits. The board is going to be very judicious in the use of her as a resource. I think we do have some in-house resources we can also utilize to supplement her to keep the cost down. So the board is being very cognizant of all those factors. And I want to thank Carl and Donna for doing all of this work with Jacqueline, because this is a tremendous amount of work, but something that we desperately need.
Now, I'm a little confused, because you're saying that we will set how many hours she works. It says in her proposal that she'd work 18 hours a week.
No, it doesn't. It says availability
Well,
up
18
to
hours.
18 hours per
We're going to
week.
call the shots on the whole thing.
The
Yeah.
board's
she's
going to set the parameters.
Right, she's
Very
totally
clear.
open to that. Anything we need, she's open to structuring around what we need.
So the RFP asks for them to give us an estimate on the time needed, but everyone was screened with the understanding that we may decide it's 5 hours a week, or we may need 25 hours a week during open enrollment, for example. We've kind of vetted folks to make sure that they were aware. So Donna is also aware of
And
that.
it says in here, in her submission, weekly schedule will be determined at onset of project. Weekly schedule may fluctuate. So I think she's aware of, she's acutely aware of this, that there's no guaranteed hours.
No guarantee, because again, that's too much like an employment relationship, and she's not your employee, she'll be your consultant. And so it's important that she and all the other candidates understood that.
They all understood that it's project-driven
Yes.
process.
Right.
So whatever the board decides is the most important HR function that we need, that would be the first project we would give them.
Right.
So,
Right.
and we have many HR projects.
But again, I think we might have some in-house capacity to assist with some of those
Yeah.
projects to keep the cost down.
Any other questions for Jacqueline? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming out, we appreciate it.
Are we talking about the actual recommendation?
Yes,
I mean,
as far as,
well, the parameters here in this recommendation.
well, basically, I would suggest we approve that we're going to have a contract with Donna, and then we have to figure out what we want to do. We have to talk to Donna and say, hey, where do we go from here? I don't think we should do it without her. I think we should talk to her and see what the first steps are, how much time it's going to take, and get her input on this. Not
Well,
that
we should decide on what our priority is, though.
Well, again, I think we need Donna here.
I
We
do
got
too.
the expert here, let's, for her, we've set this, I think the first thing she would probably say is having the employee survey, but I'd like to, basically at the meeting, just approve that we're retaining Donna as as our HR consultant, and the contractual details to be worked out.
I'm the other way around. I'd rather have the contractual things worked out before I go to hire her. I don't
Because
agree
the
with
other
some-
thing I saw in here is, it says we have to pay her 1 week as a retainer. So would we pay her for 18
We have to,
hours?
we're not hiring her for any specific time. We have to figure out what the project is, and it likes, for example, if we, basically, if we sit there and say, okay, the project's gonna take 10 hours, she's gonna want 10 hours. I mean, 18 hours was basically what we put in roughly in the RFP, I believe, and the idea is we're not committing to anything, it's gonna be on a project-by-project basis. And I don't know, we have to talk to Donna, what she wants for a retainer. But I mean, the board's going to decide this project by project, and I think we need her expertise to ask, obviously, the board was concerned about, compliance, about, policy books and things like that. We can get some of this information done for free from IPMG, who is the people with our insurance. So, my suggestion would be to get a lot of that used as a template and see if Donna wants to tweak it rather than starting from scratch, I mean, they will review all the job descriptions. So a lot of these things, some of these things in here, IPMG can start the ball rolling. If Donna wants any tweaks with it, that's fine. But we have to have an estimate of, each project, how long it's going to take, what it entails, where she starts. In order to do the analysis, she's going to do the analysis, as she said, on the fly. And I think what that means is that basically she's going to look at a couple things. If it doesn't seem like it's any big problem, go on to the next thing. Go make a big report out of it. Basically spend time on the things that really need to spend time on. The other things that seem like they're okay, go. Don't worry about it so much. Don't go out of your way to charge us with every little thing. If she thinks something's okay, she's gonna spend time on what she feels the problems are. But she is the human relations expert. I mean, we have some ideas too, and we have to come to a meeting of the minds which we want to work on first. But we need her advice to what, as an HR professional, which way we should go to start with the analysis. She is the only one. I think of the 6 people, she's the only one that suggested doing it from the bottom up. An employee survey, she calls it taking the temperature of the employees in the village of Midlothian, trying to see what's right and what's wrong. So I mean, we're not going to sign a contract right now until we work out the details of what is good for both of us.
Hey Doug, can I add to, with the contract, you don't want to just, for anyone, whether it's Donna or any firm, you want to kind of allow them to give you what they think is important, but you want to leave it where it's open, that if at any time you want to end the contract, you can. If they're not meeting your demands, you shouldn't feel so obligated in this type of relationship, because much of what any HR consultant will do for you won't be tangible, because they're dealing with people. And so my recommendation to both of the trustees was that when you do create a contract with whomever, you leave it open for you to change and to allow yourself evaluation periods so that you can say, hey, I don't feel like enough was done for the money we spent for the last 90 days. Okay? Just let the add.
Right, that's something you emphasize with she. See, why we love her, she's looking out for us. That's the first thing she said. Don't get tied up to a long-term commitment and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we don't want another job.
So, I mean, we have to, basically, we want to let Donna know that she is the one that, we want her to work for the village of Midlothian, but we have to work out the details as far as what she thinks we should do and what the board thinks is good for the board, for the village, and then put that, into some sort of contractual relationship. Probably, I think Carl's idea is right. We will approve the work she does on a project-by-project basis.
And the
Not
other
a
good
time, not anything like that. The project is good for the Midlothian, we think we should do it, we'll approve it. That's your work order.
And the other thing is, I think she'll be amenable to the IPMG, because you and I sat with them, about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and they do have all of those free services that they will offer us, and that will also supplement what she does. If they will review all of our job descriptions, they'll review our policies to make sure they are legal. So I think that will really help us maximize what we're paying through our risk insurance, and not have to pay HR consultant to do that portion of the work.
I think I'd like to have the attorney draw up some kind of contract stipulating what we're all saying here, that it'll be a project by project, and we can let her go after,
Yes,
you know, X amount of notice time, that kind of stuff. Right?
yeah, we can let her go.
Huh?
We can let her go.
What? Well,
We can let her go. Say, hi, this still isn't up to snuff, have a nice day.
That's the
I
beauty
mean,
of
that's the
contract-
bottom line.
Contracted.
Yeah, the bottom line is, we're not really obligated to do much
Not at
except,
all.
you know, if she is the person that's working with us, but we're not obligated to do much at all. The time, basically, the contract's gonna set the amount of, you know, how much per hour. That's about it. We're gonna, you know, I think what Jack would say, we're gonna be totally free on this thing. We're just telling her that she is the one we're gonna use, but basically, we're gonna call the shots.
just like an on
Well,
call.
the big picture was shots. I don't think we want to get involved with the minutia of the
No,
actual detail plan.
no, we're not detailing, we're just calling the.
So at the high level,
Right.
kind of
Right.
looking, you know, providing the direction, but not hourly or day-to-day management type situation.
So all the information here in this firm analysis, as far as fee schedules and stuff, that's, means nothing.
Well, I think she's gonna charge that per hour, whatever we tell her to do.
I'm not comfortable with that price.
That's the lowest one you got. And we can try to negotiate a lower price, but that is by far the lowest price of anybody that was there,
Oh, yeah.
by a lot.
Well, I get that, but
There is no, you know,
doesn't kind of agree with it.
you want the services, that's what you pay for. She's the most flexible by far. She is going to not eat up a lot of time in, you know, administrative nothingness. She's, you know, I think she's going to be very oriented to trying to do what we need. And doesn't have a corporate model, well, she has to build this much and she has to do it this way, and this is how we do, and if we don't do it, we can't do it that way. If you listen to the other people, Hub and Arthur J. Gallagher, it was pretty much their way of the highway. They talked about flexibility, but they didn't really offer anything that was flexible. They talked about, oh, sure, we're flexible. They didn't talk about, oh, no, we don't have to sit there for 4 weeks to do an analysis. They didn't say that. They said, you just tell us what you want, but they still wanted to bill that X amount of dollars, so they go back to their boss and say, here we bill this much, boss.
And I think the minimum for billing for them was $265 an hour. And that was just for them being here. When it came to like a handbook, for example, that was gonna cost you $7,900 just for the book. You know, job descriptions started at $300 a piece. So the 110 is actually really market rate because you're paying for in-house human resource expertise without the benefits and without that huge salary a year. And so I also did an analysis of what the costs were for someone like her, because at the end of the day, it was important to make sure that they were on target for an organization this size. And the 110 to like 165 is really a good price for what they're offering, where they don't need any of your services. They don't need your copy machine, they don't need your phone, they don't need the use of your attorneys or that kind of thing, where they have all of the expertise is actually really good. But yeah, some of the costs was ridiculous. They seen Village, and they were ready to come and call the bank, to be quite honest with you.
So,
What's a ballpark of what this might cost us in a year's time?
well, it's totally driven by us, so whatever ballpark you want to set.
So I think we need to prepare that list of projects and what we think the time is going to be.
Yeah.
Right, well, we need to, you know, basically, she has a list of projects, and she added one in there about the employees, so that isn't even in there. No, basically, what should we do, how much time is it gonna take, how much is it gonna cost, and the board's gotta decide yay, or no, we don't have the money for it right now, we'll go till next quarter, or next year, or whatever it's gonna be.
Will she provide us if we say we want the employee survey? will she give us an idea of how much that's going to run us in hours?
Yes.
She'll give us an estimate.
She's done the employee surveys before, so she pretty much knows where we're gonna go with that. I mean, employee survey will entail an employee survey, and she might interview some employees too. But basically, you know, she would tell us, okay, you know, here you got this many employees, this is about what it's gonna cost. Here's what it's gonna cost to do the policy book, here's what it's gonna cost to do the job descriptions, you know, basically. I mean, it might not hit it on the head, but the board will have her priorities, what she thinks we should do first, and I think she's a human relations professional. I think we should let her say, here's what we think, and maybe it doesn't match up exactly. We can ask, if it doesn't match up exactly to what we think it should, then we can ask her, why? Why do you want to do this? We think we have these issues, why do you want to do this first? She's totally open to any communication, any questions we have as a board to setting priorities. That's not a problem. She wants to do this jointly, but, you know, she's done this before. She talked about it like it was just automatic, I think, you know, she, but here's what we're going to do. I mean, it wasn't on a piece of paper. This was in her head. She just spouted this right off, you know, and she knew it as well as anything she's ever known in her life. The bottom line is, yes, cost is a big issue, but the board is going to be able to drive that cost, not her. With the other people are going to drive that cost, not us. I mean, that's just a fact. If we want to do, if we think this is an important priority, which I think it is, then I think we have to get involved with this. But again, we can prioritize, we can spread out the cost as much as we need to based on what we have money for and what we think is important.
Didn't we have a survey done by you
Yes.
questioning, or some, if not all, the trustees were asked to prioritize a list?
Yeah, the survey is the basis of the RFP, of the requirements.
So maybe we can just reenact that, redo it based on today's needs versus a couple months ago. And then I'm sure she can break that down, what it would cost based on our prioritizing it.
Okay, I don't mind us prioritizing, I just want to make sure she has input on the priority first, that's all. I mean, if we say to her, A, B, C, D, how much is that going to cost? She'll give us A, B, C, D, how much is it going to cost?
Right, she may say it should be DCBA.
That's right. But I mean, she'll give you all the components, you just move them around whatever way you want to, or postpone them, or say, no, that's not what we want to do. I'm sorry, you know, that's just the way it is. But I think we should let her drive the, you know, we've set the priorities in the RFP, but I think we should try to let her tell us what she needs. One, there's going to have to be an analysis at one point, at some point. We're going to have to give her time, maybe 18 hours, I think, to do an analysis. That's going to be. And I think she's going to say something about the employee survey. That's probably the basis of that. She's going to come to you and say, well, here trustees, here's what I think your problems are. And hopefully maybe they're in here, maybe they're not. But I think, you know, just as much as, you know, we have an engineer, we don't tell him how to do his job, he's telling us what to do. I think we have to believe that if we, you know, that this HR professional can tell us what our HR needs are and what we need to do to try to upgrade, to solve some of our deficiencies, to upgrade what we need, and maybe to change our outlook on how we deal with employee relations.
But it does give an answer to trustee LaRue's question. By doing this, we'll get an idea of what we're going to invest in the.
It's all up front. Now, it might not hit, you know, okay, you can't say she might not have to do a little extra work. Oh, well, we're sorry, we're not going to pay you. But I mean, it will give us a real close ballpark ball game as far as what we're going to do. It's not going. She's not going to say 10 hours. We're going to do 50. That's important. You know, costs are important. We're working on the cheaper, but I think we got the right person to do that.
My only question to that is, as we do with our department heads, oversee any contractual work like Superintendent Sperry, will Code and Bill, Robinson Engineering, who will in fact do this for our consultant?
I'm sorry, administration?
Who's going to oversee?
Right, who's going to
Administration.
meaning who is going to sign off on their bills? Would that be
It would
the
be,
employer or one of the, I mean, it would have to come from one of the employers, as we do the department heads, I would believe.
well, you know, basically, the department head is this is administration, so Marine.
Who's the-
And the mayor, or the mayor, whichever you prefer. Won't be any trustee, I don't know about it, you know,
Right.
the mayor or Maureen would sign off on the time, yes, this is under administration.
But the board's going to approve the time.
Right. Same like as we do for everything else,
Right.
yes.
Jacqueline,
Yes.
you interviewed all the candidates and sent Sundance to these two gentlemen? to-
I sent actually 3, and I came with them with the interview to make sure that they got all of their concerns and questions out. I didn't want them to forget anything so that they can be sure. And also, it's things that you notice when you meet people face to face, so I wanted to be present to make sure that I kept the heat on as well.
But Sundance came out on top,
They came
You guys
out on
did.
top,
the interview of trustee Ivan and trustee Kelly.
and myself. We all 3, we were present together here.
We asked questions of what we missed, Jacqueline filled in.
Yes.
She was
My
always
job, my
finding the
job is
best
to make
things that we
sure
always
that
missed.
nothing, because, so before the entire process we met, they talked about concerns, we talked about the RFP. So I had a list to hit, in terms of what they expressed was the village needs. And I wanted to make sure that they felt comfortable, that it wasn't just, you know, my bright idea of the 3 top picks. And so we met beforehand and we discussed the 3 picks in detail. And that also allowed time for more questions. There was even talk that we may have more trustees at the face-to-face. But I think we just ended up with just the 3 of us, and we questioned them and met with them and made sure that everything that was on that list was addressed. And that was important because, I mean, I'm in the business of making sure we find the right fit, the perfect fit, so that we don't do this again. And that was my goal. So, and I hope I met that for you guys.
I believe so.
But, you know, don't get married consultants. You don't have to stick to them. It's a different relationship. We are either good or bad. And you may set out with a priority list and say, hey, I want all job descriptions and I want all, you know, job descriptions for union and non-union employees, for example. And then you have an employee relations issue with Public Works and a resident. You know, you may have reasons why, I'm sorry, I'm not saying anything.
The only one here.
I'm sorry. You never know. And you want this person to find whatever your emergency is, their emergency. And that's why Donna stood out. The other 2 companies of the top 3 were good. They were great. But would they give you that face-to-face attention? Would they care about how your employees felt about new policies, new job descriptions, and new merit increases, those things? I don't know that we had that fit with the other 2. They had the cost set up and the billing perfect and what they were going to make working with you. But did they or would they be willing to meet your needs on a day-to-day? I wasn't convinced. And Donna did that for me, and I hope for the 2 trustees.
Yeah, the other 2 companies were more of like a help desk type format than
Yeah.
a person-to-person type
They're
thing.
way up north.
Yeah,
And we asked them if any of the people work around here or live around here.
Right.
Nobody.
Nobody.
So, I mean, you know, okay, so what kind of help were we actually gonna get? A phone? Unless, you know, a really serious issue, but for everyday issues, you know,
Yeah.
I'd like to see your face and talk with you about it before I talk to the employee or something, you know? I mean, you know, you gotta hold our hand because sometimes need that hand holding to make sure this works for us.
And there was another one that was trying to sell you software instead of really services,
That's
one
not service.
source, yeah.
That's our insurance.
You know, they want to charge $20,000 for software. You got to make sure your employees can use it. You know, it just would have propelled, and it's hard. What I hope to have done for you guys was to kind of get rid of folks taking advantage of you. Because if you don't know employment law and you don't know HR policies, You get somebody like myself who will charge you and take advantage of what you don't know. And what I was setting out, and from before I met Donna, before I even called her the first time, the RFP that she responded to, it demonstrated her dedication to the village. And I thought that was most important. I thought that was the biggest quality you were looking for. You don't need someone to charge you $100 a job description just because they got an MBA, right? And that's what I was looking to eliminate for you. That's all. I can keep talking to you. Great, these proposals. So any question you have, I can answer.
So we should ask for approval to negotiate a contract with them. Is that right?
That's right.
Yes.
Right. Okay? We ask for approval to negotiate a contract with them.
You asked for very well.
He says, don't bring Jacqueline no more.
Okay. Any other questions for Jacqueline, for us? Can we let Jacqueline go since she doesn't live too close? All right, thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you all.
She offered,
Thank you,
she offered to
Jacqueline.
come, and she comes from Maywood, so. But she was enthusiastic about coming, right?
Yes.
Okay,
I
fine.
couldn't wait.
Fine.
And I left downtown early for you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
So, we'll work on that. Jacqueline Forest Services did submit an invoice of $750. She did everything she told you about. She met with us 4 times for 5 hours plus this. I think, and you can just heard what she did, and that was what she was doing, holding our hand for all this time. Without this, we wouldn't have got too far. Or we would have had to bumble through it, which we wouldn't have been pretty. So, you know, I'd like to, I'm going to submit that for approval. If you want it separately, we can have it separately for the regular bills or whatever you want.
Just wants to know.
Okay, I think it was well worth, just what you're talking, she did that every meeting with us, and she talked about everything we should know, and she looked out for us. She was not doing anything. This was her first time doing this, but she looked out for us every step of the way.
And the analysis was quite valuable as well. Right, those are sheets that we got from the different companies. Right.
She did that for every company. Cost is a big issue. We'll watch out for the cost. And I'm sure the mayor will watch out for us. Watch us. Crosswalks and grant opportunities.